you got to really love it. And I think that's kind of what helped motivated me is I really loved it. I wanted to do it. And, that kind of helped me through the discouraging times when things were slow or when, you maybe didn't get the job that you were looking for.
But Brent, it's so lovely to meet you here on Zoom.
Lovely to meet you too. Thank you.
I'm glad to see you can also be with the technology, have a bit of problems, because I always think if you guys can fly planes, you can do everything.
Well, sometimes. I've got all kinds of microphones here that none of them, I don't know.
But yeah, I saw your beautiful photography on Instagram, and I also see you're a pilot. So this is why I wanted to talk to you, and also about your career in aviation. So can we start there? And can you tell me what was initially the love for aviation that made you want to become a pilot?
You bet. I grew up around airplanes. My uncle, I think my first plane ride, I was probably 5 years old, maybe. He owned a Super Cub. Yeah. And so, when I had my first ride, of course, I was hooked. And I would spend time, at the hangar with him around the airplane. So I've always wanted to be a pilot since I was little. I got into, I guess, are you in the United Kingdom or whereabouts are you?
I'm in Vienna, in
Austria.
Austria.
Vienna, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, in the United States, in the high schools here, they have like programs you could take, like courses that would prepare you for your private pilot's license. So I did that in high school, and then I started actively kind of when I could first get a job that would pay for my flying lessons. So I think I was probably 19, 20, and worked on my different licenses and progressed up through to where I guess my first job would be flight instructing, and I did that for maybe $1,000.
Yeah, but just to come back to the fact that you could do something like that during your time in school, so you could sort of see if it's something that you would like to do. Although you said you always wanted to become a pilot, but you got that background then, or some sort of background then to what the career would be like.
Yeah, and for me, it was kind of a different, career compared to. I have a son that's actually working on his ratings, and I think the career path and the career will be a lot different than when I went through. This was back in the late 70s, early 80s. I retire here from the airlines in later this year. So in the United States, well, I think it's that policy everywhere that when you're 65, you have to have a mandatory retirement. I know they're trying to change that here in the States, but anyway, that is where I'm at as far as finishing my career. But correct, yeah, that was a good thing to have in high school. Kind of talked about an introduction to aviation and what's involved. And through that, you got to meet people, other pilots that could kind of explain how their career paths took place. And so, like I say, basically, for me, it was like getting all my ratings. And then I flight instructed, taught people to fly for a year or so. And that got me the experience and the amount of time that I needed to get a first real flying job. And that was flying kind of what they call a 135 operation in a Piper Navajo. I would fly some college professors in Utah out to little communities. Moab was one of them. Maybe you're familiar with that. It's where Arches National Park is, but they had some college extension classes that they would teach. And so I did that to build a lot of my multi-engine time. And then later I got a job flying a jet for a company. And then from there I progressed into working for a regional airline. And
but now from where you trained to where you to this path that you have in your career, this is what I ask all the pilots. So you have to really be dedicated because you have to acquire all these hours And I always ask the pilots, how do you keep motivated? Because it's a
Yeah.
long it's a long time, and it's many hours that you have to do.
It is. It's and I think that's kind of a weeding out process. I know a lot of people after, like you say, it's you got to really love it, and I think that's kind of what helped motivated me. Is I really loved it. I wanted to do it, and that kind of helped me through the discouraging times when things were slow, or when you maybe didn't get the job that you were looking for. But yeah, especially today, I think on average, you're probably looking at anywhere from 80 to 100, 110,000 US dollars to probably get the basic licenses you need to qualify to start building time, and then later get on with your first flying job. The good thing in today's airline world is that pilots can get, because of the shortage, can get hired a lot quicker, and with a lot less experience than my generation.
But you have to have, it's quite an expensive training, so you have to have some sort of backup. You have to have somebody to sponsor you, or or have a family that's wealthy that can sponsor you. But it's not just a training; it's all these expenses with it.
That's true. I worked 3 jobs to pay for it. I also got a college degree during that time. Nowadays, a lot of the airlines, at least in the United States, they've kind of lifted their requirement for college to have a college degree. I think it's probably a great idea to have that, and like you mentioned, to have something maybe to fall back on. That's kind of the threat, I guess, that you have as an airline pilot, that sometime if you were to lose your medical or something like that would prohibit you from flying, then it's good to have something to go back to that you could earn a living on. But there's I think at least they're starting to, with the pilot shortage, realize that they need to kind of help new pilots financially with means to be able to afford all the training. And I know that, like for my son, there's a student loan that they kind of offer, that if you go through a accredited or a formal flight school or something, that they will loan you the money, and then once you finish your ratings, then you have to start paying it back. But
But now in this time, well, it's also, a pilot told me that it's one of the careers where you get most tested on, or you every 6 months you have to be tested, and after, well, if you want to progress to another level, you have to be tested and have to be trained as well. So that's also something in your career that's not found in many careers.
Yeah, that's true. I think I read somewhere that a pilot during his career is probably takes more tests and evaluations than most other careers. And you're correct. It's like every time, each license has its. You would have probably an oral exam, and then maybe a written exam. You would have the written exam, an oral exam, and then the flight exam. And then, as you mentioned, for an airline pilot, it used to be every 6 months you would have to go through an evaluation typically with a simulator, and that would involve like a 3-day process where 1 day of kind of recurrent ground school, and then you would have 2 days of evaluation. They would have an oral exam, and then a flight exam. The airlines have lifted that to where we only have to do that once a year now, at least so far, until maybe they start seeing the need to go back to that. But you do have, every 6 months, have to, at least for a captain, have to go through a physical exam. And that's kind of where you run the threat of, if something's physically impairs you from keeping your medical, then you could be out of a job. My son was just telling me that his flight instructor is kind of a second career for him, but he just recently, I don't know what his why he was unable to keep his medical, but he lost his medical, which could be devastating for someone that spent that amount of money and time and wanting to get into it, and then find out that something's preventing you from doing that, health wise or.
Yeah, I can just imagine, because of all the hours and all the time spent to go through the training and everything, and then when that's taken away, it must be devastating. But in America, I mean, this long it's long distances, or it's a very big country. Is it easier, do you think, there to be able to build up hours, because there must be a lot of people flying, there must be a lot of need for aircraft to be available?
Yeah, I think especially nowadays, like you mentioned, and plus with the shortage of pilots, of course, that opens up more opportunities because people need pilots. But there is a lot of different jobs you can do. I did a few different jobs to build time, and I'm just talking with my son there. You could get a job relatively with lower experience, like doing a power line patrol or pipeline patrol. Like I say, flight instruction is typically one that people do a lot of. People tow banners, people do basic VFR charters, things like that around to build time. And there's always freight. There's a lot of freight companies that hire lower time pilots to fly their freight operations.
But now, what types of planes do you fly? Do you own your own plane?
I don't at the present. I've considered doing that, because I'd like to continue to fly after I retire. So I've contemplated doing that, but then there's the expense of the ownership of having a hangar space is actually, at least where I'm at here, is hard to find. And then of course you have your maintenance expenses and your insurance and things like that. But kind of thought that would be a good way, maybe also for my son to build some time, and we could maybe do that together. But
so you still want to continue flying?
Yeah, it's like you say, it's a love, a definite love.
Yeah.
So.
But now your photography is so beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Really, where did you start? Why did you start doing that as well? It's really two art forms that you are doing.
Well, I appreciate the compliment. Thank you. Yeah, I kind of fell into that too. I didn't even really have what you would, I guess, call a nice camera till maybe 11 years ago. And my brother lived in Dubai, and we were going over there for Christmas. And I wanted to have a little better camera. I just had the basic camera at that time. And so I went and bought one of these kits that has like the camera with a couple of lenses to use. And kind of had fun with that. A couple of people noticed a few pictures that I'd taken. I guess the aviation side of it, I'd taken some pictures. A friend was flying a TBM Avenger, which is a World War II torpedo bomber that he had up at the air show. Took some pictures of that. People said, "Oh, that's pretty good. You got to send that into Aviation Week and Space Technology. They have a annual photography contest." So I sent that in, and they ended up putting it on the cover. And then from there, things just kind of blossomed. And people said, "Well, hey, we're doing this. Would you like to come with us and shoot this air show or do this?"
But I see some of the pictures you have there. You must be in one plane photographing another plane.
Yeah, the air photography. Yeah. And I was lucky that Scott Slocum, who's one of the best in the business, actually has seminars or a training course that you can go, and he teaches the basics of doing the air-to-air photography. And Paul Bowen, who's one of also the best air-to-air photographies, I guess Scott kind of learned from him, and then Scott's kind of been passing that on to other photographers. But every summer he has different, like I say, opportunities that he sets up to where he can go to different air shows and shoot different, particularly warbirds are kind of what the World War II warbirds and classic airplanes is what he likes to photograph. And so I did some of that with him, and that people have seen that, and it's opened up some possibilities for me there. But something I hope to continue on after retirement.
I saw these warbirds that you photographed so beautifully. It's wonderfully done.
Oh,
So,
thank
do
you.
you have an interest in the old, the historical aircraft?
I do.
mean, flying them and so.
I do. I've had the opportunity to fly a few. They're getting so prohibitively expensive to fly, and plus they're actually historical artifacts, I guess. And if you were to damage one or lose one, not only just the loss of the airplane, but kind of a little bit of history is lost. So, it gets quite expensive to own and fly something like that. I think like a P-51 Mustang, a good one anymore is probably $2 to $3 million, and I know they offer rides in those airplanes. It's typically like a couple $1,000s for a 20-minute ride. So just the operating expense is something like that. But yeah, I've always loved World War II airplanes. I had a relative that was a naval aviator during the war, and some other friends that actually the individual that married my wife and I was a P-51 ace in World War II. So I've always had a love for World War II aviation.
But do you think it's important for also young pilots to fly these old planes?
I do. And actually, I just went to a retirement party for a friend of mine, and I met another pilot I knew that was there that flies warbirds for the Commemorative Air Force in the United States, which is an organization that's dedicated to preserving and flying World War II airplanes. That he does some flying for them. But I guess that's the problem they're having now, is finding pilots that have the interest to fly, and the next generation to be able to take over and fly these airplanes so that people can enjoy them at air shows and things like that. So I know my son loves it. Since he was little, we've been going to air shows and air races in Reno and different things like that. So he has a interest and love of the warbird like I do.
Well, I spoke to a pilot once who mentioned that if you fly different planes and you bring something from the one to the other, the skill, is that, do you find that as well?
Yeah. Particularly like where the warbirds, I guess the military typically back in World War II would start out in, I think the steerman was like the primary trainer, and that my uncle actually owned a couple of steermans, and then they would progress from that into, I'm trying to think of the intermediate airplane, but then a T6 Texan, and then into the Mustang or the P-47 or P-39 or whatever you'd be flying. But I think that the progression, the skills that you learn, I've had a few friends killed in warbirds because they can be demanding to fly and require a unique skill set in order to be safe. So.
But now, Brent, what would your advice now be for a young pilot or a young person who wants to become a pilot, girl or a boy? What would be now in these times be the advice for them to do?
I would say if you have a love for aviation, there's never been a better time to get into this career. Like I say, there's a shortage of pilots. Actually, a lot of the airlines have planes that are parked, and they've had to reduce their schedules because of they don't have enough staffing, enough pilots to fly it. So the demand for pilots has been the highest it's ever been. So if it's a great time to get in as a career. And as you mentioned before, I mean, can be expensive, and at times, that it's you have to really have a desire to do it, because it can, get a little discouraging at times because of the long process. It's takes a couple of years to fully get through all the training and build the hours to get it. But it's a very a great career, especially now. I think where pretty much a young person could pretty much pick any field of aviation that they would like to go into if they want to fly for the airlines. There's tremendous opportunities there. If you want to fly corporate, they need pilots. If you're interested in flying freight, or if you like to helicopters, in the military even has a shortage of pilots. So it's a great time to get in. But as it always has been, you have to have the love and the desire to do it, because it, like I say, the expense and the amount of effort that you have to put into it demands that you kind of, keep motivated.
Yeah.
And that can be tough to do at times, when things are.
Yeah. But do you think anybody can fly? Do you think it's, or do you think you have to have some sort of talent to fly, to be able to fly?
I think you do have to have some amount of. There's always that saying, you can teach anybody to fly, and there's a few cases when I was instructing people and teaching people. There's a few that just didn't have the aptitude for it. I think most people, if they have the desire to do it, they can be trained to do it and get good training and develop the skills. There is cases where people just don't have maybe the aptitude to do it, but it's like we say in the airline industry, it's we would prefer to hire somebody that you can get along with in a cockpit, and that maybe their skills maybe are a little less, because you can always train somebody and get them up to speed generally, but you can't change somebody's personality.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, no, that's true. But now, what are the wishes still for you for the future? What's going to happen now after you retire?
You mean for me, or for the industry?
Yeah, for you.
I will plan to move to a warmer climate.
Oh, okay.
I've been living in cold climates, so and that, I think, offers more opportunities also to fly. And then I'd like to continue with the photography, of course, and I do some landscape photography as well as the aviation photography. So I'd like to, continue to do that, and I'll still fly, hopefully, and then, still actively go to air shows. And
So aviation is in your blood.
It is, yeah. I would.
And your wife, does she also enjoy doing this with you?
Yeah. Actually, her mother was a flight attendant, so I think that was valuable, because she kind of understood the industry and what was involved as far as initially. That's kind of one of the drawbacks, I think, for maybe airline flying, is that first off, it could be a little discouraging, because you're going to be flying probably the long hours. You're going to be working holidays. You're going to be it'll be a while before you get seniority enough to start getting the better trips, the better days off, and things like that. So especially when you're married, it's good, if your spouse understands that, you won't maybe be there for all of the holidays or birthdays and things like that. It's a great asset.
Yeah. But Brent, it was so lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for sharing all this and your story with me. And
no problem. Thank you.
I'll continue to follow you on Instagram, see your lovely pictures, and see what you'll be doing in the future. And whenever you come to Vienna, please let me know. I would love to meet you and your wife in person.
Well, awesome. I appreciate the opportunity to do that. I had the opportunity, one of the airplanes I trained in, I was in Germany for a couple of months. It was awesome. And we would, on weekends, go to, tour different countries and things. So
yeah, well, So it's time to come to Austria now.
Yeah, I've been there briefly. Yeah.
Really? Yeah. Okay, so have a lovely day, Brent.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.